As they say on that Miller Lite or Miller Convert, can it get any better than this? I mean, this is really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if Bill Molinar can hear us tonight, but I would like to have all of you, this is the head of the grounds crew. I think they did one hell of a job today trying to get those fields ready. One other announcement that I have that came from the office of Mr. Craig Callan and Charlie Blaney. The dates have been set for the 3rd annual Ultimate Camp, February the 12th through the 18th, 1988. We're looking forward to having 100% here back next year. Tomorrow's schedule. The games will start at 9:30. There'll be 2 games in the morning. No new innings will start after 12:15 because we got to get ready for the big game in the afternoon. San Antonio will play Vero Beach. Bakersfield will play Great Falls. And Albuquerque off. Now this is important. At 1:30, I would like to have all of you players over in Holman Stadium in your white uniforms in front of the first base dugout, and as our announcer, and we're going to have a pretty good crowd over there. You saw a lot of people buying tickets today. As our announcer calls your name, your profession, run out to home plate just like they do in the big leagues, and then form a line down the right field line. Stay there until all of the instructors are introduced. We'll have the national anthem, and then we'll get right into the big game. Albuquerque will play the first 2 innings against starting pitcher Juan Marichal. Are you ready, Juan?
I'm ready.
We'll go over the signs later on.
Juan, we're going out tonight.
Now, it's important. Albuquerque, at that time, the first 2 innings, they will set, the players will in the first base dugout. Everyone else will set in the seats right behind the first base dugout. That section will be roped off for you. You will sit in there, and then tomorrow we will know who the second team will be and the third team and so forth down the line. So, games today. Without any doubt, we have to, and it's tough for a lot of people to do this, congratulate the Albuquerque club with manager Roberts, Pee Wee Reese, his coach, and Jim Stokel for the outstanding job they did. They won 4 straight games, so we got to get. I want to preface this by saying that they did this without, in the last 2 games, Robin, that's great. You did this without forming one new rule. That was good. You played it straight up, fair and square, and you won those last 2 games.
I have a complaint about K-line. Kept pitch running pigeons on me.
I'll tell you, when I was over there, I saw a crisp. Pee Wee must have been working with those guys. Double play, the shortstop, the second base, to first. I even saw the opposing manager, Al Kaline, give him a hand for that one. That was a damn good double play.
Oh, he did neither.
And you know what he even found out after we had that rule meeting last night? He found a couple of volunteers who wanted to even catch. And they did a hell of a job, Robin. Without the old Stoker rule, we may never have had those guys.
Yeah.
Tonight, every night, we've changed the format a little bit. I gave the highlights the first night. The second night, I had the managers give the highlights. Last night, I had the assistant coaches, Hall of Famers, give the highlights. And tonight I'm going to have the instructors, the young instructors, come up and give the highlights. And it kind of touches me every time I introduce these guys, because I know how hard these guys work all summer long, working with our young ball players in the Dodger organization. I know how much they do for the Dodger organization. They're not paid a hell of a lot of money, but they do a great job of working with our young people, and sometimes I feel they're not appreciated as much as they ought to be. But I'm going to call up from each team the coach to give the Potato Head Awards and the highlights. Before they do that, we had one guy that was off today, and he's really come up in my estimation. The first year we had to make a rule called the Dennis Llewellyn rule. And it was so bad that I got the front office to send Dennis for 5 straight years to the Dominican Republic, because I didn't want him in this camp. But we gave him a chance to come back this year, and he's done a pretty good job. I just want him to stand up. Dennis Llewellyn. The San Antonio Club. And I warned Ernie Banks today, don't play him golf. But Ernie went out and played him golf. This guy can really hit a golf ball. All right, the first one I want to call up will be the winner and the new champion, the Albuquerque Club, Jim Stokel.
I want to thank Guy, and the first thing I want to let you know is I've replaced Dennis Llewellyn in the Dominican Republic for the next few years because of the new rule. We've got 2 winners tonight, because it's always a fortunate situation when you win 1 baseball game in a day, but we were very thankful and fortunate to win 2 today. We had that suspended game yesterday that was continued this morning, and we pulled it out. And then again, with some great managing and coaching by Robin and Pee Wee. We didn't have anything to do with our players, by the way. It was just excellent staff decisions on their part that got us into that championship. But anyway, we won the second game, and it was a very well-played game, one of the better games that I've seen in these camps. Everybody, and you can see the improvement in people. But the guy that won our first Potato Head for that suspended game is a guy who's been one of our stalwarts all week. He's been outstanding. He came in that game yesterday and pitched a little bit. He hadn't pitched before. He's been an excellent outfielder, great hitter, one of the best conditioned people we have here. And he got a couple of big hits for us. And today, we finally won that game, and he was, I guess, our key for that game, as well as he's been all week. And our first potato head is Herman Russomano.
Mr. Intensity, let's go, let's hear him.
Thank you, Jim, Guy. Now that we've heard the dates for next year, the whole Albuquerque team, I'm inviting you to Miami 1 week ahead of time. We're going to go train in the Everglades. And we're going to
The only concern, by the way, we had about Herm is that he's an outstanding player, but he lacks a little intensity. And if he could ever push himself past that shortcoming he has and get a little more involved in the game and talk a little more on the bench, we think he could be a major leaguer someday. The second winner we have tonight is a guy, again, that has played very well all week. And he was, I think, a victim of the Stokel rule today, in that he was forced into a role that he hasn't performed in a long time, or maybe ever. I think he has caught a little bit, but he went up to our skipper, and we had a great team attitude, and he said, "Skip, I can do it. If you need me behind the plate, I'll catch." And one interesting thing he told me yesterday, he said in the game we were playing, he said, I'm going to throw somebody out at home plate. He said, sometime today I'll throw somebody out at home plate, and sure enough he did. And so he's played very well. He went behind the plate. He had a lot of big hits today, and he's just done an all-around great job. And I just see him tonight, and he's just beaming because he says it's the greatest day he's ever had. He's enjoyed it so much, and he's just done a fantastic job for our team. Our potato head for the second game, the championship winning game, Danny Poulos.
Yeah. Be a leader.
Thank you very much.
That's good, Danny. I might say that Jim Stokel is taking on a new adventure this year. He has been assigned as a manager for the first time, and he will be going to Great Falls with all of our young rookies, and we all wish him a great deal of success up there. We know he'll do a good job. By the way, the scores of those games, and they were pretty doggone close games. I was so glad that first game this morning didn't just get over like that, boom, because that would have been it wouldn't have been fair for everybody. But at least it lasted a couple innings, and the score was Albuquerque 12, Great Falls 11. And in the second game, Albuquerque beat the Al Kaline Club, Bakersfield 14-11. Now I'd like to call up the Bakersfield coach, who is a man who handles a lot of our Latin ball players. Baseball has been very, very good to him. And he is going to again go back to our rookie club in Sarasota, Bradenton, and he does an outstanding job. We've had a lot of great young ball players come up through the Dodger organization. Joe Alvarez.
Little Caesar.
2 minutes.
Is that right? Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Guy just informed me that I got 2 minutes, and I wrote a whole speech here for you guys, but I'm going to have to cut this down, I think. The first thing I want to say is to Frank Robinson and all the history of the adult camp, it's the first time that I hear of a manager getting thrown out. And Frank, I'm going to tell you something. With a coach like Gary LaRocque, I know why things like this do happen. I'm going to tell you a little story. Just prior to the draft, I heard Gary talking to one of our coaches saying that he was going to set a record, strikeout record in this league. And the reason why he was going to do that is because we were going to pitch that first game. So when I saw him sitting next to you picking your ball players, now I know why you're having a season like you are. I've had a chance to meet some of those Hall of Famers, and some of them, like I said before, I've had a chance to meet the other group I've been involved with here in a few years, in a few days that we've been here. And it's really a thrill for me to be a part of this group, this great ball players. Al Kaline and Bob Feller, it's been great working with you this past few days. It's just a thrill, just like you guys sitting out there that were my heroes just a few years back. I remember a lot of them playing, and it's just a great thrill for me to be here sharing stories and ideas, and it's just great to be a part of this group. But what I want to say, and it's easy for us to know why they're in the Hall of Fame, all you got to do is take a look at their stats, and that speaks for itself. But being around them this few days, you put those stats away and just take a look at their personality and the love for the game, and as far as I'm concerned, that puts you in the Hall of Fame, period. You're great. I know all of us have enjoyed your company, and it's just outstanding being here with you. To Guy, we all need a crying shoulder, and he's our crying shoulder in the minor leagues, our godfather. We thank Guy for a lot of things that he does for us. We go to him to all our problems, and whether he can or cannot solve them, he's always there for us. So I want to thank you, Guy, and let you know. And Francis, of course, I know you're a part of this too. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the things you've done for us. And now getting to Craig and Charlie, every year I've been coming here to Dodger Town the last 7-8 years. And every year that we come here, whether it's the adult camp or spring training, you guys do a better job year in and year out. and it's tough to top this. I really say this with the bottom of my heart. I've been in other organizations, and this is just an outstanding camp, and you guys are part of it, and you can understand what I'm talking about. So thank you, Charlie and Craig, for all your work. And now getting to the, God, you're rushing me. You're standing back there. I'm getting nervous here. Getting to the night activities. Bakersfield, we had a few guys really that did a great job today. James Cabito played center field, went 2 for 2. Bernard Clottery went 2 for 3. Ive Johnson went 3 for 4 with 2-run score, and Paul Haldeman went 2 for 2. But the man of the hour went 1 for 3, and he pitched 5 outstanding innings in relief today. Dean Golden Arm Rushman, come on, get your potato award.
I gave one of these to my nephew at Christmas. This has been a tremendous week, and I know a lot of you guys can relate that my entire body hurts right now. But still, Ernie, I feel great.
How do you feel, Ernie? Where's Ernie? You gotta be. You feel what? You feel blessed.
Okay, then please go.
Uh-oh. There you go. Blowout.
David! Charlie or Fred?
David! Yes, sir.
There he is. Just moved it from there. I want you to know, I can speak while he's still here. This is the only man, this is David Leeds. He runs what some of you were over there the other day, he runs the records upstairs, and we call him Mr. Music. He's the only man I know in the minor league system or the big leagues that has ever been thrown out of a ball game. He got thrown out of a ball game by an umpire. One night we were here, it was either in the playoffs, near the end of the season, and he played one of those things, whoops, big mistake or something like that to the umpire, and the umpire turned around and he said, "You're out of the game!" And it was all on TV. We stayed afterwards and saw David get
We saw him get thrown out the second time on TV. That's right. Okay, the next man that I'm calling up is the Great Falls coach. They had a tough day today. And this is another instructor in the Dodgers minor league system who is starting out in a new adventure. Some of you may not know this, but the guy I'm calling up here is John Shoemaker. He played basketball at the University of Miami of Ohio. And Shoo, I can never get this straight. You either upset Marquette or you upset Notre Dame. It was one of those Catholic schools. I don't remember which one it was, but I'm sure you'll tell us when you get up here. But Shoo was the captain of that basketball team and was later drafted by the Chicago Bulls. He's now going to start a new deal. He's the manager of our Vero Beach, Florida State League, John Shoemaker.
Thank you very much, Guy, for the introduction. And as you can see, what a great evening we have here. And I just wanted just a second to say that the reason that we have these great camps, because we have participants like you fellows who come and put a lot of enthusiasm into the game, and the Hall of Famers are outstanding in the job that they do in instructing and socializing and just trying to help you fellas enjoy your week. And it's just been an outstanding time for me. I've had an opportunity to come to every adult camp and work as an instructor, and it seems like each camp gets a little bit better because we're getting new ideas from the campers. We set a record today by losing 2 games, the only team in adult camp history to do that, so you guys will be etched in the record books. We're talking about some of the rules that some fellas had named after them, like the Dennis Llewellyn rule and the Jim Stoker rule. I had a chance yesterday to have a rule named after me, but I thought I better not. We had a fellow, Leroy Hammer, was caught in a rundown between first and second, and I knew there was no way he was going to make it back to first. I almost ran out and pulled him back, but I didn't want to get a rule named after myself, so I just let Leroy get tagged out, and it cost us a big inning. But we did lose 2 games today. The first game was the suspended game, and we lost by 1 run. And in that game, we had a couple players who had pretty good days. Hugh Thompson had a 2-run single in the early innings and got us on the scoreboard. And Frank Jacobson, our catcher, had worked that noon on blocking some pitches, and he did a pretty good job blocking 3 or 4 balls in the dirt, and he saved 2 or 3 runs. But the fellow who's going to win the Potato Head for our first game today is a fellow who we had to call in from left field. He pitched the entire game except for just 1 out, and he had never been on the mound before in his life. And he's got a name like every young minor league player would want to have. Our Potato Head winner for the first day is Bill Prospect.
Say a couple words, Billy. Tell us your secret.
There was no secret. It was just luck. But I'll tell you one thing. It cost me dearly, physically. And if I ever see Bill Bueller again, it'll be too soon.
The second game we played this afternoon, we got off to a very, very bad start. I may have made the mistake because maybe I had predetermined what was going to happen. I told Warren and Lou before the game, I think the fact that we're playing over in the big stadium today, some of our guys might be down because we lost that tough game, and it's a new stadium, and there was a lot of surroundings over there. You can look around and see a lot more things happening. Well, we got picked off over there about 7 times, and maybe I created that to happen. I don't know, but we got behind 7-0 in the 3rd inning, and we had to bring in a new pitcher by the name of Marty Burson. And most people in that situation, down 7-0, they would just go out and really wouldn't bear down. But this kid came in and bared down, and he tried to keep us close, and he did a good job. As the final score ended up just 12-9, we lost. But our Potato Head winner for the second game is a guy who, probably the most quiet guy we have on our ball club. He just goes out to his position, he gets up and he takes his swings, and he runs the bases hard, and he works real hard during the drills, and you wouldn't really know he's around if you didn't see his name on the back of his jersey. And in the first at bat today, he hit a sharp single to center field, ended up stealing second and stealing third, and I think he might have been one of those guys who got caught looking around because I think he got picked off in the first inning. But our Potato Head winner tonight is Rich Harlow.
Hey, Rick.
Tell him that, Rich. You don't have to take that from him. Tell him you didn't get picked off.
I didn't get picked off.
Pull another string, guy.
This is incredible to me to come to a camp like this of our national pastime and be with players who are in the Hall of Fame. I expect I'm going to try this again next year. Thank you.
And the last potato head. And for 2 years in a row, Joe has stolen my words up here, Alvarez. I was going to make a big deal, Joe, about this was a new record today. We've never, ever had an instructor or a manager ever ejected from a game. And Frank did it. But Frank's been ejected from a few games in his lifetime. There was nothing new, was it, Frank? That's right. But I will say one thing about the Vero Beach Club. They've rallied around Frank, and they quieted a rally down the last inning and won their first game of the year. So it's a pleasure for me to call up our San Antonio manager, been in the organization 7 years, Gary LaRocque.
Thanks, Guy. It's been 9 years, Guy.
Boy, how time flies.
We really got to set the records. We got to set the record straight here a little bit. Number one, Shu, your runners got picked off today because Kayla's babysitter. You had to get home early. You didn't want to pay her anymore. That was one thing. So don't say that, you know, it was just your fault and all the rest of it. But and Guy today, I got to tell you what he talks about how great all of us have been, us young coaches. The truth of the matter is, Guy this morning at 9:15 was walking over to field number 1 with towels in his hand to wipe off the benches for the scorekeepers. And he says how great we are. And I said to him, Guy, all the years you've been doing this, all the hard work you've put in, why don't you have one of us do it? He says, I don't think you could get it done. That's very true. And the third thing is, we didn't rally around Frank today. He wasn't there at the end. He was thrown out. We rallied around Juan. It was Juan's win today. And that will even up the first night. It's even. We go one-on-one. Now, the first night you said your coaches, you wanted to thank him for the draft. Well, now you can thank us. We won today. I've been asking to go every year. First, our game today was a great game. We played real hard and did some good things. We cut down some runners on the bases, and we had some pickoffs, and the ball fell in the glove the right spot and didn't drop out. And guys put the ball in play. We had 7 runs and 2 hits, so we really knocking the ball all over the park. And we really earned the game today. There's no question about it. And for our club, I'm really thankful. They did a great job. And the guy who's done an outstanding job with our club, and he's really gone unnoticed. And the very first day, they said the coaches might have to catch, the coaches might have to pitch. And he stepped up on day number 1. He said, I'd really like to try catching. And, of course, every inning he comes out and says, can you put me out in the outfield now? And we say no, and he goes back to catching. But he's done a great job for us. He threw 2 guys out today at second base. And Robert Lamont, come on up here and get your Potato Head Award.
Thanks, Gary. I am from North Dakota, probably the only camper that's ever been here from North Dakota. And people from North Dakota do have a habit of being honest and forthright. And I do have something honest and forthright to say. Norman, I'm the guy who cut the buttons off your shirt and nailed your shoe to the floor.
Now we can call off that detective. No, we don't have to have him. I thought that was kind of nasty to do to you today, Norm.
Nobody else did.
No. I'd like to call up one of the campers who was asked to speak tonight for the campers. Jim, where are you? Not you, Jim. Jim, I turned you down.
Yeah, I'm a troublemaker. I asked Guy if I could come up here because this is not my first camp, and I've seen Guy thank the trainers and Dennis thank the trainers the other night, and I've seen everybody around here from the maids to Craig and his whole staff. But I've never seen anybody get up and say something that I feel really ought to be said. There's 73 of us down here, and so we probably have 73 different reasons for having shown up. And we're going to probably take away 73 different memories. You'll probably remember the hits that you got and the outs that you made and the errors that you committed and the hours you spent in with Bill and Charlie and Geeski. Let me give you one piece of advice if this is your first camp. Don't tell anyone about the hits when you get home because they don't want to know about it. They're going to smile and nod politely and they'll say, oh, good, I'm glad you had a nice time. What you're going to remember is Duke spending time with you on the batting tee and Campy talking to you about how to block the plate, Juan throwing batting practice at you and wanting to know why you're not swinging, and you tell him it's the first time in your life you've ever seen a rising fastball and you didn't know what to do with it. You remember the guys that you played with. You remember the stuff that your coaches and instructors told you. First day, before the first game, Robinson said to me, look, when you're in the batter's box, keep your head up. So I did, and rocked through at it. Then he told me I wasn't aggressive enough, so I turned on the umpire this afternoon. That's the kind of stuff you're going to remember. What I wanted to do, and what I told Guy I thought was appropriate and important, was on behalf of all 73 of us, to thank the five instructors that worked with us, Joe, Gary, Shu, Stokel, but especially to thank the Hall of Famers. Dennis Beck does magic in the lounge every night, but you guys really do perform magic. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of us.
Okay, could I have all of the pitching masters up here? Robin, could you get your crew up here? Juan? Bob? Llewellyn? Oh, no, I'm sorry, Dennis. Warren? Yeah, he's got... Yeah. Hoyt? Just take a seat up there. Now, when it comes time for questions, we hope that at the end that you'll want to ask some questions of these great pitchers. Dave Leitch, Mr. Music, will, if you raise your hand for a question, he will take the microphone out to you so that we can all hear your question, and then we can hear the answer from our Hall of Famers. So go ahead, our moderator and new champion, Robin Roberts.
Boo. We're humble. Hey, Pee Wee Reese did a marvelous. Now I know why he's captain. Captain Reese. Listen, you guys talked a lot nice about us. Believe me, the enthusiasm you guys have here at this camp is great for us. The games are long as hell, to be honest with you. But just to watch you and how interested and how enthusiastic you are is worth the whole thing, and we do enjoy it. And we hope we can be a part of it next year, and we hope you come back, because we do have a great time. And it sounds silly as it can be, but when you walk off and you have won the game, you feel a lot better than if you haven't won it. And we were happy to win it, and tonight we'll talk to you about anything you want to know about pitching. We have, as you know, guys that have done a... Hoyt, were you in over 1,000 games? How many games were you in? How many?
1,070, I believe.
1,070. I was in 609. What were you in, Spahn? Do you have any idea?
Too many.
Too many?
I don't know.
Bob, how many games were you in?
I think it was around 580, 590, and in the American League, and about 200 in the South Pacific.
You know, I must tell you this. I coached college baseball at South Florida, and we had an off day. We go to Mobile to play South Alabama when I was coaching. That's where Eddie Stanky coached, and we had an off day there once, and it's kind of hard for the guys to, you know, spend the time an off day. You kind of come up with something to do, and there's a battleship there, the USS Alabama. It's now a exhibition. You pay a couple of bucks and you go in, and for the guys to, at our young age that played on my team, to see a battleship was a big thing because they are enormous. And we went through it and we walked up and down it and went all over it. And when you go to the petty officer quarters, there's bunks there, and underneath one of the bunks it says, Bob Fella slept here for 3 years. And Bob was on the Alabama for all those years, and after we went through there and everybody read, we got back on the bus, and I said, now, did you see that one bunk there? And it said that Bob Fella slept there for 3 years. And they said, yes. And I said, now, do any of you know who Bob Fella was? Not one, Bob. Not one. So I spent a half hour telling him about Bob's record. But a lot of people don't realize Spahn never won a game in the big leagues till he was 25, correct?
Say so.
Well, he won 363. These guys were in the service, did spend a lot of years. Williams, we've heard so much about. Bob's career, of course, was about 4 years short of what it normally would have been. And but the one thing about Feller, nobody knowing him, I certainly knew him and was able to tell him a whole lot about it. Pitching, we didn't get that involved with it because it's very hard to talk to guys about pitching, especially in a camp like this. There aren't a whole lot you can do about pitching if you can't throw the baseball hard. I know working with the guys in college, whenever I would start a season with my pitchers, I would take them out in the outfield, and if they couldn't throw it 250 feet on one hop home, I don't know how to teach them pitching, believe me, because if you don't have a good arm like that, I don't know what to do. Now, Hoyt would know more about that than I, as far as guys that couldn't throw hard and throw distant. So we lined up our Albuquerque team to, first day I was here. I put them out 250 feet from home plate, and we saw how many of them could fire it on one hop home. And then we brought them in a little closer.
Robbie, I'll answer that. The fastball goes a lot further than left ball.
Yes, I know all about that. I've done that many times. But we would like you to ask the fellas questions here tonight, and if you got something on your mind about baseball and about pitching, they can talk to you, and we'll ramble on and on for 15 or 20 minutes and let you know about what it was like in the big leagues. So you got any questions, these guys? Just ask them.
Go ahead.
Sure, Danny.
Juan Marichal, the Albuquerque team, will be facing you in the first 2 innings, and I would like to know what, if anything, you have left to throw it.
Let me tell you something, you're in trouble right now. I gotta be looking for you tomorrow. Well, I got my screwball working for the left-handed hitters, and I think you're gonna see the right hand is gonna see a lot of sliders, because I don't like the hitters to hit long balls. So I'm gonna try to take the power away from the hitters. So I'm gonna be using that 2 pitches, and don't get too close like Frank used to do, because if you go too close to the plate, you might be able to go down.
Go ahead, Danny.
Real bright question, Dan. What's a slider?
Well, if you don't know what a slider is, there's a ball that is similar to a fastball, but when they get it close to the plate, the ball seems to sail away from the right-handed hitter.
The nickel curve.
Number 5, Juan.
Number 5. Number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
I was in San Francisco with the Phillies in, what was the year, 60 or 61 when you came?
1960.
1960, and we were in there, and it was announced in the paper that Juan Marichal, a young rookie, was being called up from Springfield. Where were you pitching then?
Tacoma.
Tacoma. So he was coming to pitch against the Phillies. And in '61, the Phillies were a club that they used to not charge to watch us play. We weren't a real solid operation that year. Anyhow, we all heard about Marichal. We went out to the ballpark, and he struck out 10. The only hit was a high hopper over the mound. I think he beat us. Well, I know he shut us out. I don't know how many runs they had, but that was my first glimpse of Marichal. And I remember watching him kick his leg like he did, and I said after the game, there's no way he'd have any kind of a career with that kind of motion. I remember talking about it. Questions now for the... Yes, sir.
Robbie, as you compare yourself to today's modern age hitters, or on the other hand to today's pitchers, what do you think about your careers in today's game?
I think
better or worse?
Well, I think the game's changed so much. Pitching is a lot tougher on the hitters now because they relieve on guys a lot more, and the real rhythm guys that pitch 9 innings, they're just not around that much. Valenzuela, Fernando, who pitches for the Dodgers, is one of the few guys that will go 9 innings, and most of the guys with that kind of rhythm have trouble early in the ball game. Once they get squared away, they'll pitch pretty good the rest of the ball game. And he's one of the few guys that Morris does it a little bit with the Tigers, but overall it's a 5 and 6 inning starting pitcher and bring in the relievers. And I think it's tougher on the batters now. I think they have to hit it better stuff consistently over a 162 game schedule. I think when we pitched, we got them out with different approach. We were more control and give them tough balls to hit, but they hit them a little more. Now the strikeouts are more there, the night games, the relievers, those guys like Gossage and Bedrosian and guys like that they're tough to hit in short relief, and they hit it. They beat them occasionally, but they make hitting a lot tougher.
Robbie, what was your greatest moment in playing baseball?
Well, it's so involved with the Dodgers, with Pee Wee and Duke. We almost blew a pennant in 1950. We had a 6-game lead with 7 to go. We had to win 1 game to win it. Got all the way down to the last game in Ebbets Field, and I pitched that ball game against Nuke, and we went ahead 1-0 in about the 4th or 5th inning, and Pee Wee hit a ball in Ebbets Field onto the screen in right field, and it dropped onto that sign out there by Abe Stark, only down a little farther. And generally that was a double or maybe a single if it bounced good to your right fielder, but it hung on that ledge up there. And I remember watching Pee Wee run around the bases, and nobody told him to stop, so he kept going. And it seemed like it would be a ground rule double, but they didn't have any rule that said that particular ball, it had never done it before. After that, the next year, it was a ground rule double. That tied the game. Then in the 9th inning, I walked Cal Abrams, and Pee Wee singled to left, put runners on first and second, and it brought up Duke. And even though Duke was a power hitter and left-handed, I thought he was going to bunt. And I laid it in there and popped over to cover third, and he ripped one by me and by my second baseman, a line drive, and Abrams was on second, and I turned to watch the play, and I remember watching Abrams step back towards second because it was a line drive that could have been caught by the second baseman. It looked like it might be, but it wasn't, and he came on in, and for some reason, their third base coach sent him in, and Ashburn threw him out by 15 feet. It wasn't even close. It made runners on second and third because Pee Wee and Duke moved up on the throw-in. So my manager was Eddie Sawyer, and Jackie was the next hitter. And he came out, and he said, we don't want to pitch to Jackie, which made a lot of sense. So we walked Jackie, and Frillo was the next batter. First pitch, he popped it right straight up, and the next guy was Hodges, hit a fly ball to right field, and we got out of the inning. Started the 10th inning, Newcomb was pitching. I singled to center, which I always like to mention. And it was funny. You talk about pitching. There's no way that I would have stayed in that ball game in this day and age, But I topped the 10th. There I was going. I hit and I singled, and Wakeus singled. Ashburn bunted, and they threw me out at third. And Sisler was the next hitter, and he hit a 3-run homer, and I got him out in the bottom of the 10th, and we won 4-1.
I had a lot of 18 years of baseball, but that was the walking over, or being carried off the field that day was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in baseball. As far as the excitement of the game, being elected to Hall of Fame is always a big thrill, but the game excitement, that topped the whole thing. Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask any of the pitchers, in a big game in a visiting park, were you or are you affected at all by the crowd noise? Does it break your concentration? Is that a problem in baseball, like let's say it is in football, where you build up the momentum for the home team?
What do you think, Bob?
Not a veteran pitcher. After you've been around 2 or 3 years, you no longer have rabbit ears, and you become accustomed to all the noise. The only thing the noise in a ball game would ever affect the ball game, in my particular case, and I'm going to pass this on to Warren, would be in case there's a play, a bunt or a play where you had to yell or say something to a teammate, and because of the noise in the stage, you couldn't hear them. The same as in football, you couldn't hear the signals. As far as upsetting the player or having any effect on their playing ability, absolutely none.
Answering your question, I think that crowd noises are part of the game, and you're very effective, or affected rather, when you expect to be booed in the the other guy's park. But when you're playing at home, and you can have 40,000 people that are rooting for you, and that one jerk that says, "Get that bum out of there," you hear him. And I remember I was pitching a ball game in the Polo Grounds, and things didn't go very well, and I was relieved about the 4th inning. And in the Polo Grounds, our clubhouse was in direct center field, so that was a long, long walk. And this one guy that had a voice louder than anybody else's said, "We got you today, Eagle Beak." And I'm walking toward our clubhouse, and I don't want to look up to let this guy know that I heard him. And I'm trying to peek out from underneath my cap to see who that jerk was. And I never did see him. And the next day, I was running in the outfield, and there was a guy in center field that said, "Hey, Spahn, throw me a baseball." The same voice. And we had old baseballs that we used to run with, and I'm tired, and I'm hot, and I don't like the fact that I'm running and whatever. And I saw this guy, and I said, "That's the son of a gun that did it yesterday." And the barrier was about this high, and he was standing up above it, and I picked up a baseball, and I drilled it at this guy, and he was going to catch it, and I hit him in the chest with it. And he went behind this barrier, and he crawled up from out of there, and he said, "Thank you, Spahn, for the ball." He never called me Eagle Beak again. What were the toughest hitters that you faced in your career in the National League? I'll tell you, there's a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame that I put there. And there's a lot of guys that nobody ever heard of that I made heroes of. And I'm serious about that. There was a little guy, a little colored second baseman with Pittsburgh by the name of Kurt Roberts. And Robbie remembers him. And he probably hit 125 in his career. And I can honestly say that the right-handers in the league got him out of the league for me. Because every time I raised my arm, he hit a line drive somewhere. And fortunately, he wasn't big enough to hit the ball out of the park. So he was one of them. You know, I have my own little list. And a guy by the name of Gordy Coleman was Cincinnati, left-handed hitter. And he used to chase bouncing balls against right-handers, but against me, you know, balls that far off the plate he wouldn't swing at. And one day he lined out to second base, and I said, "You son of a gun, I finally found out how to pitch." But I think the rhythm of the pitcher and the hitter in a lot of cases are alike. And it doesn't matter whether you're a great pitcher or a great hitter, but some guys see the ball better off a certain pitcher than others. And, you know, I fooled a lot of people for 21 years, and I remember guys going down the first baseline and say, "You lucky son of a buck, go warmed up." And that was me.
You know, a couple of things about that. Like Spahn said, guys hit different guys. They time your rhythm for some reason. That Vinegar Ben Mizell was a left-handed pitcher. He pitched for the Cardinals in Pittsburgh, and he was very drawl guy. He was from Arkansas or someplace. Had a real slow Southern drawl, and he said to me one day, "Robbie, how do you get Pete Wissonet out?" And Pete Wissonet, I never pitched to Pete Wissonet. He only hit at left-handers. And they tell me that he just wore Vinegar Ben out, and he wanted to know how I pitched to him. And I didn't even know he was in the league hardly, you know. Of all the guys I pitched to, though, I pitched to so many. And Aaron and Duke and Campy and Jackie and Musial and all of them. Those guys that hit 330 and hit 40 home runs, they're tough. You don't have your good stuff, or if you have your good stuff, they can hit you some days. But of all the guys that beat me 2-1 with home runs or 3-2 and just unbelievable, I could get him out low and away like I could pitch to my wife and get her out. But I would get him out 2 times a game, 3, and I'd think, God damn, he's got to be looking out there. I got to go inside to pitch him like a pitcher. Boom, home run. And that was How Do You Feel Ernie Banks. He hit 15 home runs off me, and I guarantee you 12 of them were in one-run ball games.
I'd like to ask all 5 of you to think about the pitchers that are in the game today. Of those, who do you think are going to be sitting up at this kind of a podium 15 or 20 years from now? Have a good chance of it.
What do you think, Hoyt?
I'd have to think about that a minute or two.
Well, I think Carlton, to start with, Carlton is a shoe-in once he decides to hang it up and take his 5 years.
Talking about Hall of Fame?
Well,
yeah, he's talking about Hall of Fame.
I'd say Dwight Gooden.
I think Sutton also has got his 300 wins, Hoyt.
Sutton's possibly, yes. Sutton's 300 wins.
Tom Seaver.
Oh, Seaver.
Tom Seavers. Well, the younger pitchers is like Gooden and the guy at Boston, Clemens. You know, you'd only pick. I would pick the same ones you'd pick probably if I had a little time to they don't all come to my mind right quick, but you know, you'd pick the outstanding pitchers right now, the young outstanding pitchers, and the ones that can survive and pitch long enough, they'll be sitting up here.
Mike Scott for the Astro, he's a good pitcher, very good pitcher.
Of course, Nolan Ryan's not a young pitcher, but he's certainly.
Oh, he's gonna be. Oh yeah.
Robin, I'd like to interject something. I think that we have a tendency to automatically put somebody in the realm of Cy Young. And all the guys that are up here have proven themselves over a number of years. And there's no question in my mind that Dwight Gooden is not a great pitcher. He is. But they have to put stats together like Juan Marichal and all the people, Bob Feller and whatever. I've heard any number of people compared with what Bob Feller, he throws harder than Feller or this sort of thing. But none of them have put consecutive years together, and it takes a lot of guts and a lot of determination to repeat. And in pro football and in baseball, how many times have you seen the same ball club repeat? It takes a very special individual to be a Frank Robinson or a Pee Wee Reese, or the people that have done things over a long period of time. And a lot of people ask me about Roger Clemens and about Scott and about Dwight Gooden. And they've only been there for a couple of years. Hey, stick around and let's see what they do for the next 5 years. And as far as sitting up here, I don't think any of those people will be sitting up here because they'll have too much money. They'll be running this camp instead of being
Yeah.
On that subject, who that you fellows pitched with?
Take a bite. Of the professional athletes you had the opportunity to commiserate with.
Woo.
Who do you feel should be in the Hall of Fame that is in fact not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, that's a tough one, too. I mean...
Well, you know, we're paying a lot of money to ask tough questions.
Right. Well, let me ask you the same question, big boy.
Thank you.
And while we're on...
Big boy, what am I, a hamburger from California?
Right, and while we're on the subject here, I'd just like to make a statement.
I know Fort Lauderdale did in the last game last year.
I'd like to make a statement.
Go right ahead.
I've been several of these camps, this one here last year and several others, and you gave me the greatest thrill I've ever seen in a camp on that run yesterday when you hit that triple. You rounded second like a wounded buffalo. And then you stumbled and fell halfway from there in the third, and when you hit third, you were like a dead sack of corn. A great thrill.
Do you think it's easy being the Michelin man? Let me tell you something. You know how many teams you played on?
Tony.
How many people didn't want you? You know the only reason you're in the Hall of Fame is because you set a record for most teams played by a pitcher.
Tony, I love you, and I'm just telling you, you gave me a great thrill.
I'm gonna get Bucky Dent all over you. Guy's here 7 days, he walks around talking to a pipe. And all I was a simple question.
Okay, one answer.
Sir, who do you think should be, like a guy like Jim Bunning? Shouldn't he be in the Hall of Fame? I mean, we'll kick Robin out, but shouldn't Jim be in?
Let me interject something just a moment. If Rick Farrell's in the Hall of Fame, where do you think Wes Farrell should be?
I know Dick Farrell beat the Dodgers in 62.
Well, I think we're getting a little off the subject here. No, I'm going to say this, that for some of the fellows up here, I hope they agree with me. Since we're fortunate enough to be in the Hall of Fame, I don't think anybody's going to say that anyone in the Hall of Fame shouldn't be there, and we're not going to worry too much about the ones who are not in, that even though there perhaps some of them should be, they're bringing in a lot of good ball players, and none of us are on the committee to do the voting. But I was just thinking about Wes Farrell, who was a great pitcher, won 20 games his first 4 years in the big leagues, and his brother Rick being in the Hall of Fame. Of course, he had a lot of longevity, and I think he's on the still payroll of the Detroit Tigers. Is that correct? I think he works for the Tigers.
Ernie, you ought to be able to answer that.
All right, question. Hey, Norman, that was a terrible question. No.
What are we voting now?
Go ahead, Mike.
This is directed to Hoyt. Hoyt, I'd like to know why people think that the throwing the knuckleball is less of a it means less to your arm, or in other words, it has less strain on your arm. It seems to me that it has as much strain on your arm as throwing any other pitch, and I'm just curious as to why it's why it's felt that way.
Well, it don't really. A knuckleball, I tell you, as far as I'm concerned, the pitch that really puts a strain on the arm is the guy, and Roberts and Spahn can answer this if I'm right or not. I think it's the guy that throws the hard sliders and the hard curveballs that puts a strain on the elbow. A fastball is thrown with a straight wrist, just thrown with a straight wrist, and there's no strain on the elbow really. Knuckleball's the same way. The main difference is a knuckleball, you don't have to throw it as hard as you do a fastball, and it'll do something. It'll move. So no, a knuckleball is not as hard on your arm as the guy that throws that hard stuff.
It is an interesting question, though, Hoyt, is why can't more guys throw the damn thing like you guys do? You know, there are very few guys that have made a living with a knuckleball.
I agree with you, and you see a lot of these pitchers today, young pitchers especially, they a lot of them need something like that, but really and truthfully, I think to take a young pitcher that has never thrown a knuckleball and try to teach it to him, I don't think you can do it, because you show him how to hold it. In other words, you throw the fastball and basically you throw the baseball like that. And you tell a guy to double his fingers up and and hold the ball like that and throw it is just so unorthodox. I think a knuckleball pitcher is more or less born with kind of a knack of throwing it. And it's something that you can't just teach out of the clear blue. If you did, you would see a lot more pitchers throwing it.
I know I was telling Hoyt the two best knuckleballs, other than guys that made a living at it, was Mickey Mantle had a hell of a knuckleball, and Granny Hamner, who played with me, was a shortstop, had a great knuckleball. And
All the infielders had great knuckleballs.
and a lot of guys can throw it, and I couldn't get it to do anything. It just went straight as a string. Yes.
I would like to ask the Hall of Famers, when you are on the mound, when is the angriest moment for each of you that you had, that an event occurred that you had to relate to?
Hoyt, did you get mad ever?
Hell, the maddest I ever got was when a guy had a long one off of it and beat a ball game. I mean, I think something like that would be when a guy beats you a ball game.
Juan, do you get mad ever?
Yeah, sometime. One time I was pitching against the Mets, and in the fourth inning, the game was tied 0-0, and Tommy Agee hit that home run to beat me 1-0, so I got mad.
Maybe I misunderstood you there. You're talking about a time that I was pitching when something like that happened. I'll tell you that. Since Juan, it kind of reminded me. I'm pitching in St. Louis one time in the old ballpark. And they had built the Busch Gardens out there. If any of you have ever been there, Busch had built a beautiful garden out there, and fountains and all that stuff. And the Cardinals had a guy at that time by the name of Steve Bilko. And I'm sure a lot of these guys here remember him. Steve Bilko, I played against him in the minor leagues, and he couldn't carry enough of bats up there to hit me. But anyway, in this game, we had a 4-run lead, and DeRocher told me, he's leading off the ninth inning, he says go out there and make him hit the ball, lay it in there and make him hit it. So I went out there, and the first pitch I threw him just a straight fastball, and he hit it in Busch Gardens. And I said, right then, I will never do that again, because I just gave him a home run, and that made me mad.
Where is Burson? Where's Burson? Stand up. Marty Burson, where are you? Well, now I can talk about it. You talk about a red ass. This guy is a real competitor, and he was a shortstop, pitcher, did a great job for our club. And we were behind by 7 runs because I wanted to save him to pitch tomorrow. And we got behind by 7 runs, and he's bitching at the third baseman, the second baseman, and whatever. And I brought him into the mound, and he said, why in the hell are you bringing me in here now? And I said, well, you just hold him for me, and we'll win the ball game for you. And he cussed me, he bitched, he moaned that Thompson was playing third base, and Thompson is a guy that never said boo to anybody. And he said, Marty, you do your job and I'll do mine. And that was the best thing that ever happened to our club. But you talk about a red ass. Burson rather, is a real red ass. And the other side of that coin, as far as a pitcher concerned, I think that professionalism requires a great many things. And I think one of them is to control your temper. And secondly, you never want to display to those other people, the hitters, as to what your emotions are. And if you're the kind of guy that blows your cool, you're not going to do the decent job out there. And I was pitching a ball game in the Polo Grounds one day, and I questioned the umpire about a pitch that I had made, and I thought it was a strike. And Leo DeRocher was at third base. And he said, you big-nosed son of a bitch. He said, we'll let you know when it's a strike. And I was so mad at DeRocher, I could have beaned him. But I knew that if I let Leo know that I was mad, that I was going to blow that ball game, and that's just exactly what Leo was trying to do. So for the next 8 innings, I pitched the toughest ball game I ever pitched because I had to control my temper. So whether you get mad or not, doesn't matter. It's the job that you have to do. So I guess maybe the pitcher has to be the greatest actor on the field.
I think the Pee Wee, it's funny with us being here, I think so much about the Dodgers and having pitched against them so much. I was pitching a ball game in Ebbets Field one day, and we were winning 4-3 with 2 out in the ninth and a man on second, and Pee Wee's up. And I get strike 1, strike 2. And I had a fair curve. Sometimes when I got in a jam, I popped it off pretty good. And I throw Pee Wee a pitch, just bang, right down, to me, right down the pipe. It's such a good pitch. I was so thrilled I struck him out and the game's over. And we used to go through the Dodger dugout on the way back to the clubhouse. So bang, I strike him out and I'm thrilled as hell and I'm headed off the field and I'm crossing and I'm going and I cross the first base line and all of a sudden I realize nobody's coming with me. And then all of a sudden I realized the guys called it a ball. And you can't believe where the pitch, Pee Wee said it was a little outside, but it was right down the pipe. So I start circling the umpire and Pee Wee and I cussing and I'm lucky he didn't throw me out. I was so mad. So now to go down after all that exhibition and go back to the mound, which I had to do, man still on second, 4-3, and I threw 5 more pitches. Pee Wee fouled 4 of them right straight back, and he finally popped it up into center field, and we got the out. But I cannot tell you how upset I was over that play. And like Spahn says, to be able to come back from losing your composure like that on the play and get them out, you're very fortunate. Generally, when that happens, you have no trouble. Campy was the catcher, and the next day I was coming out the runway, and Campy saw me, and Campy, in his own way, says, "I thought Russ Meyer was pitching." Russ Meyer happened to be a guy. yeah. Russ happened to be a guy that pitched for us that really had a temper. He did that all the time. But anyhow, that was quite a moment for me as far as losing my cool.
Just want to ask each of you: is there one game that stands out in your memory as a pitcher?
What do you think, Bob? You had a lot of them. You opening the feller, you pitch opening day. Is that one of your big jobs? The no-hitter?
Well, I've been pretty quiet here most of the evening, and I'll go pass this along to Warren. Everybody, I'm sure, here has one game, the hitters, all the Hall of Famers. In fact, all you campers, I'm sure you had one game, too, that in school or college or where it was on Sandlot Ball, you had one game which stands out in your mind, too, because we're all alike. We're not different at all. And probably the game that stands out most to me, which is also most important to the baseball fans, happens every opening day when they bring up the fact that I pitched an opening day no-hitter in Chicago in 1940, which is by far the best, not the best game which I ever pitched, but that's the one that is brought up the most, and it has become probably the most important game to me because they bring it up every opening day, every year.
Was that the only one ever pitched, Bob? I don't know.
It's the only one ever pitched in opening day in Major League history, according to what the record books say. But I look every day. I look at the box score every opening day, see if anybody's done it. And so far, I'm pulling for it not to happen again.
How about you, Spotty? Which of the 363 do you remember most?
I think thrills go into 2 different categories. There is the personal aspect and then the team aspect. And certainly anyone that had the opportunity to be on a winning ball club and play in the World Series, those things are so terribly important. And important ball games that you won that might have been the difference between winning and losing a pennant, those are big ones. And then, of course, on the personal part of it, you know, not too many people get an opportunity to win 300 ball games. Ridiculously, I came close, but never pitched a no-hitter until I was 39 years old, and pitched one there, and about a couple of months later, I pitched another one against the greatest hitting ball club I think that I ever saw, the San Francisco Giants. And I pitched against Sad Sam Jones, and we got a unearned run in the first inning, and I struck 15 people out in that ball game, and I was 40 years old. You know, these things are ridiculous. But I can't say that there was any one game other than winning a pennant or the World Series that was more important than another one. They're all important to us. You know, paycheck, have a job for the next year, or some goal that you wanted to achieve. And I think just putting the uniform on, I think that one of the biggest thrills I ever had in my life was having a major league uniform. And if I can spend a few minutes at, I came out of the service and we had a guy that was a right-handed pitcher that was 6'4" and weighed 220, Al Javery, and I inherited his uniform. And in those days, you know, they didn't tailor the uniforms. And that was my uniform, and I could double it around my waist and rolled up the pants however long, and they still didn't fit. But I wouldn't let them take that uniform back because I was afraid they wouldn't give me another one back. So the game that I pitched in that uniform was a very important one to me. Got it.
Well, I pitched a lot of games, you know, in my career, but in 1971, I have to pitch the last game of the season to clinch the pennant. And the Dodgers was right behind the Giants by one game, and we have to win because if they win the game in Los Angeles and we lose, that was a tie. So I have to come out and pitch that game, and I win it 5-1. But I think the game that really I can never forget was pitching against the great Warren Spahn in 1963 in Candlestick Park. I was 23 years old and Warren was 42. Going to the ninth inning, score was tied, nothing. Alvin Dark want to take me out, and I said, Alvin, let me pitch one more inning, please. And he let me stay in the game, and I pitched one more innings, and nothing happened. The next time I supposed to go out in the field, he said, Juan, that's enough for you. I don't want you to ruin your arm. And we got a man ready in the bullpen, so you're not going to pitch anymore. So Ed Bailey was catching, and he said, Juan, don't let him take you out. Win or lose, you do a good job, so stay in the game. So I went to Alvin, please let me stay one more innings. So he did. Nothing happened. So in the 14 innings, I told him, I said, listen, that guy pitching over there, he's 42, I'm 23. I'm going to stay in this game. I'm going to stay here. And I went and pitched the 15 innings, and nothing happened, so he was ready to take me out. And I say, okay, get the guy in the bullpen ready. I'm not going to pitch anymore. So when Warren came out pitching the 15 innings, I run to the mound. The guy, he already told the guy in the bullpen that he was the next pitcher. So I run to the mound. Now he feel bad to go and then take me out, so he let me pitch the 16th inning. So when we came to bat, I told Willie Mays, I said, Willie, it's enough for me. I can't pitch anymore. So Willie went out and hit a home run, and we won 1-0.
We talked enough, I think. I think the biggest game I ever pitched in my life, the one I'll remember most, was I was in high school, and we beat Taylorville 4-1 in the sectionals, and I hit a 3-run homer in the last inning. And of all the games I ever pitched, I'll never forget the one I hit in the cornfield in Taylorville. Thank you very much. We enjoyed being with you. We've had fun. We'll see you tomorrow.
Just a reminder that the movie The Boys of Summer will be shown in the lounge in about 10 minutes. The Boys of Summer will be shown in the lounge in about 10 minutes.
We have curfew tonight.
Oh, no, we've seen a lot of baseball this week. Some of it on the field.